Hey guys, it's me, Ryan, and um, I'm going to introduce the book that I read. It was actually pretty neat because the book that I ended up reading really kind of coincided with some of the things that we were learning with the system or with the American Class Systems class. The book I read was by Dalton Conley, and it was called "Being Black and Living in the Red." It was an interesting book. It was very alarming. I'm very I actually right now presently I have a career in which I'm already working, and I don't know if I mentioned it when we first did our introductions to the class that I took a trip into to a poor Caribbean country and really decided that I wanted to go back to school and finish my degree in sociology and help work with an impoverished area. So when we got to choose the books, I thought this would be the best in line with something that I could really get personally attached to. A few stats just about the book, so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I've got a few notes here. One of the things that Conley discusses in the book is that African Americans have had a hard time, uh, you know, getting into the red, and one of these things that causes this is the lack of assets that they've had historically. And Conley goes back even to the Civil War, where you had these individuals that were brought from a different country, to the United States. When they got here, they were unable. They became slaves. They were unable to even own their bodies, their own labor, and it was actually against the law for them to own land. So I mean, we can go back to even to the Civil War and see that from a historical perspective, African Americans have been at a grave disadvantage, comparatively to white families. Um, um, the Conley makes it pretty interesting to even he provides a statistic that African Americans own 0.05% of the entire wealth of the United States back after the Emancipation Proclamation, which was in 1865. And we fast forward now, and African Americans only own 1%. So I mean that number hasn't drastically risen in the 200 years since the Civil War, and so he's saying even when racial oppression ended, um, it was replaced with economic subordination. Um, so I asked the question: Did racial oppression ever end, or are we just in this time where we just look at systematic racism with things like the education system and things like that? Something that I don't know if I believe we studied it in this class, but I know that I've written about it in some of our discussions. But something that really gets me is what I've read in some theory classes in this class, that your opportunity to move up in this life, to have upward social mobility, is a lot of it's based off in education. Um, so one thing that really gets me is this concept of what they call fleeting or white flight. So you might have this diverse community, and as that community becomes more diverse, um, the white families will move out. They don't want diversity. They want to be around people that look just like them, that enjoy the things that they do. And probably this is one of the most alarming things that I found, is that when that happens, property values go down. Um, uh, and these the educational system set up in a district system where if the if your property value goes down in your community, then the government can only give the school in that same district, so much money. So, we're saying, hey, get a good education. This is the way to really do better for yourself. But it's almost impossible because you're not getting enough federal money from the government to say, in the town that I grew up in, one of the schools was grossly. I mean, you could tell that it was predominantly minority, African American, and you could just tell the facilities were not nearly as nice as the district over, where there was predominantly white people living there. Um, those are a few things that I really held, that I took in personally, because you look in this situation like, well, what can I do to help? What can I, why is it the way it is? why will things not change? And it really is. I think something I appreciated about Conley is that he was able to approach this without a political bias. And so I think stepping back from the book, I've learned that the government is not doing what they can to stop systematic racism, which is essentially holding what I believe African Americans in a low position and not letting them achieve an upward social mobility. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and looking forward to hear you all's reflections.